A war was waged between a legion of priests and bloodthirsty vampires. Today we'll recap the story of the 2011 movie, Priest. Sola Mira Hive Raid Mission. The priests, they are in the home of the vampire queen. The feeling is that they will die in that place. The squad advances through the dark cave, and the leader orders them to stop. As he picks up his cross, he certainly knew they had fallen into a trap. And several vampires appear surrounding them. The leader escapes through one of the corridors, and his teammate is captured, his scream of dread ending that mission. What is known from history is that humans and vampires have always been in brutal fights. And although we had the sun and the weapons in our favor, that was not enough. The vampires were faster and stronger, and with extinction near, the humans created castle cities, under the protection of the church. Then came the ultimate weapon. The priests. This new legion single-handedly reversed the fate of humanity, fighting fiercely against the vampires. But the sovereign clergy, afraid of losing control over the people, decided to extinguish the legion of priests, leaving them forgotten on the margins of society. But by banishing those who protect them, the great dark menace will surely return. Away in the vastness of the desert, a farmer, named Owen, checks the soil conditions. He tells his wife, named Shannon, that he has found traces of residual radiation, but he's still hopeful that he can start planting soon. Their daughter Lucy arrives home, and a small argument ensues over the fact that she went into town without permission. As they sit down to dinner and begin the prayer of thanks, Owen hears a noise from outside. A tremor appears and grows stronger by the second. As he looks out the window, he sees a horde of vampires approaching. While Owen puts locks on the door, Shannon drags out the coffee table and opens the basement. She orders Lucy to stay there and whatever happens, just don't shout. Lucy from downstairs could hear the vampires coming in. Even her father, armed with a powerful shotgun, would not be able to defeat them. It was only possible to hear the screams of Owen and Shannon. The noises have ceased and the trapdoor is opened. Someone mysterious approaches Lucy and she lets out a scream of terror. We are now in Cathedral City, Sector 12, a cyberpunk-style urban area. The priest from the initial mission appears listening to the clergy reports on the big screen. To go against the church is to go against God. They have a digital confessional system, where the priest goes in and talks to the clergy. He says that last night he had a dream about the war, he saw his comrades die, and he understands that he did not do enough to save them. This has tormented him. The priest in the confessional just says that the devil takes many forms and tells him to say some prayers. And of course, he always reinforces the power of the clergy over everyone. The priest was walking home in the dark alleys of Sector 12 and realized he was being followed. It was Hicks, the sheriff of Augustine. He came to report that Lucy had been captured by vampires. Owen, who is the priest's brother, was badly hurt, and asked the sheriff for help in finding his daughter. Hicks asks the priest for support in going after Lucy, as he is an expert in fighting vampires. But he gets no response. The priest requests an audience with the high clergy. He asks Monsignor Aurelius to reinstate him as a priest, for the vampires have returned. But Monsignor thinks it's foolish, says it's just bandits who kidnapped the priest's niece. He begs them to let him do his job and save his niece. Aurelius warns him, if he goes against the orders of the clergy, it will be an attack against the church, resulting in expulsion from the order and excommunication. The priest becomes extremely angry. On the vampire train, Lucy is caged in one of the cars, with a psychopathic vampire taunting her. But a dark man in a hat throws the ghoul away. Lucy tells him that his uncle is a priest and will come to hunt him. Then the man turns around, and says that he counts on just that. We are revealed the leader of the Black Hat vampires. One of the monks is talking to the priest, trying to convince him not to do anything he would regret, telling him not to try to stand against the church. While they were talking, several soldiers of the clergy arrived in ambush. And the priest had no choice. If to stand against the church is to go against God, then he will do so. He snaps his crucifix and eliminates all the clergy soldiers. He needs to go quickly to his house and prepare his equipment. As he prays his words of forgiveness to God, he grabs his weaponry and war clothing. It's time to leave for the mission. He starts his motorcycle and leaves through the gates of Sector 12, heading for the desert vastness. After a long journey on his motorcycle, he arrives at Outpost 10, where his brother used to live with his family. The house is all turned upside down, and while looking at the family photo, Sheriff Hicks shows up there. Now the two of them team up and head to the next stop where his brother is. The town of Augustine, Desert Oasis. The two arrive there, and find a quack selling medicinal vials against vampires, and the sheriff drives him out of town. The priest meets his brother. He is very weak and injured. He thanks him for everything he has done and how he has tried to protect the family. And his brother has only one request. That he brings Lucy back and eliminates every vampire he can find. Hicks wants to support the priest's mission in every way he can. And he proves his skill by cutting an ammunition in half with a knife throw. The priest accepts Hicks' help and prepares some special ammunition for the sheriff, nailing a cross on the end of it. The high clergy summon the last remaining priests and order them to hunt down the deserted priest, whether dead or alive. Unfortunately, Owen is eliminated, and is buried next to Shannon. The priest is definitely determined to hunt down this mysterious new vampire. The priest realizes that the tracks left by the vampires are different this time. That was something else entirely. As the tracks go north, they go to the Nightshade reservation, where marginalized vampires reside. They need to proceed with caution as they don't see any guards on site, and what is strange, they find a sinister vampire cutting off chicken heads. They ask about the order of vampires that is with Lucy, and he simply dodges questions, saying that no one ever passes through Nightshade. They enter the dungeon where some vampire cells are. Hicks notes that there was not much sunlight left. They need to hurry, especially since the stairs are full of vampire excrement, a secretion they use to build their hives. There was something very wrong there. The place is all destroyed, with a terrible smell. The priest breaks a cell to catch a totally schizophrenic vampire and asks where Lucy is. But outside, vampires arrive dragging their scythes on the ground. They attack the sheriff with an axe. He quickly returns the attack and hits right in the middle of the forehead. He can only escape. There is still a lot to defeat. Outside, the chicken cutter was waiting for him gently with his cleaver. Hicks drew his gun to shoot them, but he was stopped by the priest. Save his ammunition for what is to come. The priest has destroyed each of the vampires in that outcast gang with great ease, but as he takes the last one, the sun is setting, and as night falls, the vampire says, "It's their time." A horde of the vampires in their original form comes out of the cracks of that reserve. The priest uses his special skills, a kind of prayer that throws the Bible up and throws shurikens in the shape of a cross, and his classic dagger of war to fight the beast. Since the last vampire knew he was out of the woods, he reveals to the priest that they took Lucy to the west, and the idiot is finished off by another monster that comes up from above them, and drags the priest into the dungeon again. He got out of it quietly. With the information passed by the vampire, the only possible place they could be is Sola Mira, that hive from the initial mission, and will be the next target of the mission. Meanwhile, on Black Hat's train, the bloody charlatan peddler went over to tell him about the priest and the sheriff who passed through the town of Augustine. Sure enough, after Black Hat thanked him for the information, he sucked the old man's blood, turning him into a vampire slave. The priest and the sheriff then arrive at Sola Mira, the largest hive ever created by vampires. It should be empty after the war, but the priest suspects there is something going on in there. His memories still haunt him from that mission. Despite Hicks insisting that the hive is empty, the priest orders him to stay there and jumps into the terrifying darkness. Walking through the holes and burrows of that dark labyrinth, he noticed something moving, and is surprised by the priestess, former teammate, who came to warn him that his head was at risk thanks to the orders of the clergy. She believes in the priest's purpose, has the same nightmares as him, and wants to help in his mission. The two hear a noise from above. Hicks is being attacked by the hive guardian. The priest and priestess go up a few floors to face the huge vampire. He really does have gigantic strength, and ordinary attacks will do no good. The priest makes the sign of prayer and awakens a powerful ability. The priestess tosses stones into the air, so that he uses them as a platform for momentum and fatally cuts the guardian. Even though he looked dead, he wasn't, but he was finished off with a clear shot from Sheriff Hicks. The three of them advance to the center of the hive, where tens of thousands of ruptured cocoons are located. The new army of vampires has been created. They observe the city of Jericho in the distance. Surely that is where the great horde has gone. At the train station of the city that is now the target of the vampires, the guard is awakened by a tremor from the tracks. But it was not time for any disembarkation. A huge train arrives there and parks, with absolutely no one present. And of course, the little gentleman is brutally attacked by a vampire. Black Hat orders the attack to begin. In the houses, the family members are quietly enjoying the night, and the vampires begin the generalized eliminations. Black Hat walks listening to his symphony through the streets, while his bloodthirsty slaves drink every drop of blood of the innocent population. Jericho has become a sea of dark blood. The three priests who went on a mission to capture the deserter try to confront Black Hat. One of them lunges at the cursed man with agile blows, but receives a punch in the chest and flies away. Black Hat eliminated him with just one punch, and he tells the other priests to take his side or end up like his friend. It's morning and the trio arrive in what's left of Jericho. They don't find a living soul, apart from explosives in the shed. And the worst, the three priests have been eliminated and crucified by Black Hat. The three watch the tracks and study what the vampire's strategy would be. For the next stop is the city Sector 12, as these centers no longer have the presence of light rays, and all priests leave there to hunt the deserter. The city will be overrun by hordes of vampires. This has always been Black Hat's strategy, to take the priests off guard. They then prepare with the explosives. It will be necessary to get to the train and destroy the tracks before reaching the cathedral city. Lucy is still being watched by Black Hat, who now removes his hat and reveals the mark of the cross. The cursed man is a former member of the Legion of Priests. The priest cremates the bodies of his companions and priestess hands over the battle cross used in warfare before they leave for their final mission. The three go to the strategic point and wait for the train to arrive on a desert hill. Hicks points the gun at the priest, asking him to promise not to eliminate Lucy, even if she is infected with vampire blood. And then we discover that Lucy is not the priest's niece, but his daughter. When the clergy summoned him at a young age to become a warrior priest, his brother Owen had to take care of his niece and assumed the role of priest. Priests were not allowed to start a family. Hicks understands the priest's pain and the three move on as the train arrives. The sheriff jumps on the last wagon and breaks in pointing his gun, but it was empty. In the next room, dozens of cocoons are hanging from the ceiling, about to burst. The priest outside jumps into the center wagons and his bike explodes, causing a tremor in Hicks' wagon, which bumps off a pod and knocks him to the ground. The priest has finally found Black Hat, and he finally recognizes him. He realizes it was his captured teammate in Sola, Mira. Black Hat tells that he was attacked by dozens of vampires, and just as he was about to take his last breath, the queen provided him with her blood, turning the priest into a human-vampire hybrid. He gained powers beyond human comprehension. The priest refuses to accept the offer to join Black Hat and the two fight the final battle. However, the priest is not strong enough against this vampire abilities. Black Hat brutally kicks him and throws him out of the wagon. And Hicks is still dodging the cocoons in the final wagons. A vampire appears on the roof and forces him to fire his gun, which makes all the cocoons start to open. Now they're in trouble. He moves on to the next wagon. And there's Lucy with a slave from Black Hat. The thing still manages to take the girl away and leaves the sheriff locked in with the vampire horde trying to bust down the door. The priest sprouts from the floor of the wagon. Despite the beating, he is still alive. The vampires manage to burst through the door and Hicks shoots the ceiling so that the sunlight enters and eliminates all the vampires. The two advance between the cocoons until they reach the wagon where Lucy is. But again Black Hat stops them. He throws Sheriff Hicks off the train. Lucy blows a lamp at the slave vampire and tries to advance on Black Hat with a knife, but it is in vain. He holds her with the palm of his hand, and even lets out a wry comment that she's fast just like her father, revealing that Lucy is the priest's daughter. He throws the girl away, sticks the knife in the priest's shoulder and sets the place on fire. He carries Lucy onto the train. The only hope lies with the priestess. She has moved ahead of the train, and vampire bikers are following her to stop her from sabotaging the line. She plants the dynamites and sets up a sensor, but the bikers surround her. The priestess uses her lethal weapon, a hook with a steel cable. With this she easily slices each motorcycle and the vampires. But the bomb's sensor was broken by them. There was only one way. She puts the bombs on the bike and moves down the tracks towards the train. Just as Black Hat is about to bite Lucy and defile her, the priest climbs into the wagon and throws his war cross. Lucy almost falls off the train, but is saved by her father. However, Black Hat is still alive and trying to knock them off. The priestess appears with the motorcycle on the tracks and crashes head-on with the train, blowing up the whole locomotive and incinerating the Black Hat and his horde of vampires. The priest and Lucy managed to jump off the train, so did the priestess. Sheriff Hicks also arrives there. Everyone is safe, but priest needed to prove his word. He broke into the church during a high clergy mass, and threw a vampire's head at the feet of the Monsignor. He says they should simply go to the wrecked train near the city and they will find more vampire bodies. They really are back. Monsignor is furious, and says that it is a great offense to him, that it was a lie, because the war was over. Priest turns around and just replies, that it was just beginning. Together with Priestess, they will head to City 7 towards the vastness of the desert. The Queen hunting mission will begin. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.